There'll be a fight.
And there'll be a lot of death, unfortunately.
It will be a fight we will win.
But a lot less death. But there will be death.
People should be actually kept out of the country for at least 28 days.
America is not prepared.
G'day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Butterfield Effect. Great to have you back for another week. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to jump straight into this one, okay? This is a great podcast with a great man, a guy that you absolutely, I'm sure you bloody know. He's been on the internet for a long time here in Australia. Lewis Spears, great friend of the show, great bloody human being, very tall as well. But before we do that, ladies and gentlemen, massive merch drop on the 1st of September, next week. I'm pretty sure that is, next bloody week, ladies. I just had to look at my calendar. I don't know what day it is, ladies and gents. Let me tell you this. This is the biggest merch drop that's ever happened on my channel, or perhaps in this part of the world, in Australia at the very least. In the Southern Hemisphere, this has never been bloody seen. Holy dooly, Ruben Wiki. It's going to be an absolute cracker. We've got new T-shirts. We've got mugs. We've got hats. We've got everything happening. It's all bloody happening, ladies and gentlemen. So do not miss it. It's going to be a cracker. But what's more important than that right now is jumping into this podcast with Lewis Spears. Please, mate, welcome to the show for the very first time, Lewis Spears. Lewis Spears, how you doing?
Hey, I am very well. I am stuck in my house. I'm in Melbourne, the epicenter of the virus and shit comedy, but I'm trying to push through the virus. Mate, that's a lot easier to defeat in this situation.
It's all happening. It's all happening. Fucking hell. You know, I did a podcast probably 2 weeks ago now with Chris Wainhouse. I don't know if you know Chris.
Yeah, I had him on my podcast. He's a king. I think that he is one of the best comedians in this country. Forget about Melbourne. Like in the whole country, I think he's one of the best. And it was cool seeing him on your podcast because I was like, oh fuck, I didn't know you guys even knew each other. Yeah,
well, I've been talking to him since probably February about having him on, and I've just been heaps lazy with it. But yeah, I saw him for the first time probably. We spoke about it on the show, but 2016 maybe, and I was doing a show at the Fringe Festival. Oh, well, then you've known him longer than I have. Then I think. Oh, I mean, no, I'm not just trying to fucking outdo you, but I just knew of him. I only met him once, but he just seemed like a cool dude, and he was also one of the only people that I knew who would do stand up about anything, and that's why I wanted him on the show. And I assume that's probably a similar reason you had him on yours.
Yeah, exactly, because. That's just the type of comedy that I enjoy. I enjoy like stand up, you know, like a guy or a girl standing there with a microphone and telling jokes about anything. And I think that a comedy that's about darker things, it's much harder to make funny because the subject matter is not funny. You know what I mean? Like often if you're telling a joke about, I don't know, people with an illness or a terrible thing that's happened, the subject is almost objectively never funny. And the hard thing, the trick is making the joke about an unfunny thing funny.
Yeah.
And that's where people get confused, where if you tell a joke about a thing that definitely is bad and definitely is sad, they think that you think this thing is funny. It's like, no way. It's definitely not funny. The joke about the thing, fucking great though, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's and I appreciate what you came out and said on your podcast, Spearhead Sundays, just the other day about the thing that was happening with me, the whole drama about the Christchurch joke that I had, and the thing with that particular piece of stand up is the part that's funny is how fucked up it is, how offensive it is.
Yeah,
and for people not to get that. It does boggle my mind. And I mean, a lot of things went through my mind when that whole thing was blowing up, where I was probably a poor choice of words, where that whole thing was, thing was carrying on, and people were like, "Oh, you need to apologize." And it's like, what are you talking about? This is what stand-ups do. But particularly in places like Melbourne, and we've just been talking about a particular group, a group chat that we're in about a Melbourne comic who has the shits about something that's going on with Friendly Geordies, Neil Kahaka, and myself. Just happened. Now, I'm not going to go into that. That's not important.
Yeah.
But what is important is where Melbourne comedy is at the moment, and it seems to be in a worse and worse place as the years go on. Now, you're there all the time. You do the open mics. What is it? What's going on there?
So I started in Melbourne. I've lived in Melbourne my whole life, and I grew up. And so a little perspective on me. I started in 2012. If you don't know who I am, I got a YouTube channel, blah, blah, blah. I started in 2012, and all I wanted to do was be a stand-up comedian. That was all I ever wanted to do since I was literally like 12 years old. I saw Leno and Woodley, some of my favorite comedians at the festival, and something in my brain went, I fucking want that. So I grew up obsessed with the comedy festival gala and all of these amazing comedians, and all I wanted to do was like be a part of it. So I started online in 2012, making comedy, doing YouTube videos, doing like controversial stuff and stunts and tricking the media into running fake stories, trolling, all that kind of stuff. And then I kind of just was like, oh, I could turn this into my real dream, which is stand up. And then I was like, I had this little online audience, and I was like, okay, well, I have this online audience, but I've never done stand up before. The last thing I'd want them to do is to just come and see my show, but I've never done it before, because obviously that would be shit, because anyone starting stand-up, you're going to be bad. Your first like 6 months, undeniable, you're going to suck, but that's how it is, you know?
Process.
So I was like, yeah, it's the process. So I was like, well, I need to take this serious because I want to be a legit stand-up comedian. I don't want to be some cunt who has an online audience so they do shows to make money, because there is a bit of that out there, you know? So I'm like, oh, well, I want to be legit. So I get into the open mic scene and I start doing shows, and I start like getting, you know, being bad and getting good and going through the process, and, you know, what every real stand-up comedian does, eating shit, working hard, working on your skills and becoming better. About 18 months go by of me doing that, keeping it a secret. And then I do the Melbourne Comedy Festival. And me, you know, I'm still a young comic. I'm like, man, this is the fucking dream. I'm in the fucking Melbourne Comedy Festival. This is what I've been watching since I was 12. And I sold incredibly well for a first show. And I was met with nothing but disdain and scorn from the people that I looked up to and the industry that I wanted to really get involved with and genuinely wanted to be a part of. And I think I've thought about it a lot, and I think it's because the traditional way of blowing up, especially in Melbourne and with comedy in Australia, is there was literally a step-by-step process. You do raw comedy, you do well at that, you get through the rounds, you get picked up, maybe you also do class clowns if you're younger, then you'll do fucking fresh faces, and there's a bunch of other things, little like feature spots, and you slowly work your way up, and all of these opportunities are decided by the people who run the festival and this and that, and then maybe you'll do a guest spot here and a guest spot there, and eventually you do a festival managed venue that's run by the festival, and then you slowly work your way up, and the only time you progress is when the person above you moves up or the person at the top retires, and then there's a space for you to move up. So for a long, long time, there was literally a queue, right? And then along comes me and other people, Alex Williamson, Frenchie, later on you, who built this online audience and started getting people coming to shows almost without permission and acceptance from the powers that be. And all of these other people that are maybe, you know, 5 years older than us, who put their whole life into this system, all of a sudden looked at me, you know, my first year doing the festival, selling out some shows. I didn't go crazy. I sold out a few shows out of my 12-run show, but they look at me and they go, hey, you fucking pushed in. You're not supposed to be here. You pushed in. I was in front of you and now you've pushed in. And then I'm kind of left there going, well, there is no queue.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's, you know, me selling a ticket doesn't mean you sell one less ticket. I thought that we could, like, you know, be a part of this together, bringing people into comedy and getting them to enjoy it. Because who knows, if a lot of the online guys, people coming to their shows have never seen a show before, and then they go, oh, fuck, I love this stand-up thing. Maybe I'll check out another show. It's good for everyone, you know? And yeah, I was just met with this weird like disdain from the industry that I think stems from not succeeding the correct way, or not having approved success, despite having put in the hours like any stand-up comedian and genuinely being good. Like I can make my fans laugh, but that's, to be honest, way easier than making strangers laugh. I can do that shit too. I genuinely want to be a really good comedian. I've done the Comics Lounge, 500 people who've got no idea who I am, make them laugh. I opened for fucking Andrew Schultz, all his fans, hardly anyone knew who I was. I smashed. And to me, it's like the Melbourne scene is like full of gatekeepers who want to control the industry. And it stems from, I think, a lot of people being unable to succeed in the industry. So instead they settle for controlling it.
Yeah. It's like a manager at a department store. They think they're king shit, but really they're not doing anything. And I mean, I faced the same sort of reaction from people, and it's very strange. You know, you see someone who is making an online presence and you assume that they're not a comedian, or they're not, they don't practice the art, or they don't try and perfect the craft. And in reality, it couldn't be further from the truth. I was doing stand-up for 4 years before I started doing videos. And I just realized...
Well, that's the thing. Like, you had more stand-up experience before you started online than I did.
Yeah.
You know? So it's like these people thinking like you or I blew up out of nowhere without doing the rounds is weird to me.
Yeah. And I think the only way that you are successful in any space, whether it's stand-up, whether it's YouTube, whether it's accounting, is putting in the hours. And that's what you've done. That's what I'm doing. And people just don't like to see you, as you said, skipping the queue, or really what we're doing is we're pumping ourselves through the steroids and showing off on the stage, because the way to do it, and has been done since the 90s, was, as you said, you go and do raw comedy, which is a competition, and you will get picked if you fit the Triple J mold, and you'll go forward, or the ABC mold. And then, you know, down the track, if you fit that diversity mold, or they're happy with you, they might put you on Channel 10, and then you'll start selling tickets. And you'll only sell tickets in Melbourne or Sydney, nowhere else, but you'll start selling tickets. And then they see people like us come along. And then, you know, I've been lucky enough to do shows all over the country, as have you. And we can sell tickets in the most random of places. Like, man, I was lucky enough to be over in the UK doing shows there, and in London having like 400 people there. It was fucking insane.
So cool.
No,
I had to fucking COVID. I canceled my UK tour. That's
really?
I was really looking forward to it. But that's, you know, that's amazing to.
It's insane.
I mean, and that would never happen the other way.
No.
Without the internet, and all of these comedians, and I'd never want to name names, because I've always, you know, I love comedy and I love the industry, and I don't want to fucking fight with these people. I just want to, you know, what I would prefer is, instead of going back at them, I would rather, you know, go, hey, why don't you fucking come over here? You can do the online thing too. You know, like it is very funny watching all of these people who, since before me, before 2012, you know, have been bashing the online comics and saying that it's hacky and all this kind of shit. But, you know, with COVID, what are every single one of these cunts trying to do? They're starting podcasts, they're doing videos, and they're finding out this shit is just as hard to do well.
Yeah.
And what's going to happen, you know, I view it as like, there's very little crossover in terms of the ability to make someone laugh online and the ability to make someone laugh on live. Like, there's a little bit in terms of writing, but the way you make people laugh is completely different. They're two different like wheelhouses, and I prioritize stand-up for me because I think that's more important and the more difficult one. But what these people are going to find out is that we didn't like cheat our way to success. The reality is, doing this and doing stand-up well is harder than just doing stand-up, because it's two different jobs.
you're in a different, and I've been doing this recently with trying to write my new show and perfect that. It's a whole different wheelhouse, to use your word, sport, to use something that I refer to it as. You're playing a different sport when you're writing for videos, completely different to writing jokes on stage. You know what I mean? Yes. Like if you're writing to perform a joke on stage, it will be entirely different to how you write a video and nail a joke or a point or whatever it happens to be. It's just completely different. And I recently just went up on stage in Newcastle here at an open mic night because I hadn't been on stage in 7 months. And I was just like, fuck, I need to do something.
I'm jealous. There is no chance of me. I can't even leave my fucking house here in Melbourne. Yeah. There's no chance I'll be performing until, I think, next year, I reckon.
And no, I think you're spot on. There's very little chance. So I took the opportunity to get up there, and I sent the group chat. I emailed the promoter doing an open mic night at the Wicko Hotel in Newey. And the Newcastle Comedy group chat freaked the fuck out. They were like, not all of them, a lot of them were really nice. And on the night, a lot of them were really nice. And they just assumed that number one, they thought I hated women. They was just like, no, this is a woman hater, yada, yada. And I was like, oh, fucking righto. But I was in the group chat. They just didn't know. I'd been in there for like 4 years. So they're all started to arguing, should we allow this dude in? And I was just like, I'm here, motherfuckers. So I sent them a video of me in the car, just like, hey, listen, if you want to keep your little crew together, that's cool. But if you'd like to have, if I can come along and I just want to do 20 minutes. That's all. I'll do it at the end of the night, whatever. And, you know, as you said, the gatekeepers, these people just didn't want me there. They thought I was better than them. I thought, you know, they think all these things that people say about me, all that type of shit. And man, I always try, and I know I play this big persona of some tough guy. I just kill people with kindness. And I'd be polite and all that shit.
That's what you have to do. And that's like always been what I was like, is like, for some reason there is this perception of, or this perceived air of arrogance about us, or like, oh, they think they're better than us. And it's so not true. At the end of the day, we love comedy. We love stand up, and we want to get on with comedians, and we want to be a part of the industry. We don't want to like fucking fight. I don't want to go to an open mic night and fight with some other fucking comedian. I want to go there and make people laugh. Yeah. The whole thing of this in Melbourne, it's particularly bad. It's a lot of it is a fuckload of, because with these open mics, there's hardly many big audiences at all. There's not many people are doing a set and then getting messaged afterwards by an audience member going, man, I love your shit. I'm a fan of you. Because a lot of these comedians have no online presence at all, like literally not even a fan page or an Instagram. So audience members literally cannot become a fan of someone if they like them a lot of the time. These comedians have gotten into this mindset of, I need to impress comedians. I need to make comedians laugh. And that's so not what you're supposed to do as a comedian. I don't want to make comedians laugh. Like I like what you do, Isaac, but I don't want you to be my fan. I want people to be my fan. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like you're one person. I shouldn't be trying to impress you. You shouldn't be trying to impress me. You should try and find the type of person that would like your shit and come to a show. And to me, that's a no-brainer. But I understand if all you have is the approval of other comedians and the industry, that's going to completely warp your idea of what comedy should I do? Because often, you know, an amazing bit, if I see it, in my head, I'll go, oh, that's funny. That's really good. I see what they're doing, but I won't necessarily laugh. But bro, if I went up and I saw you bomb, I'm dying. Yeah. I'm going to laugh. I'll laugh like nothing else. And some people go, oh, I got a lot of laughs from the comedians doing that. And then they do that more and more. And then they do a show and a regular person, an audience member sees it and goes, this is weird.
Yeah.
What's this? This
it's
is
like the whole culture with anti-comedy and all that type of stuff, the anti-humor. Yeah. And that's something that I haven't faced too much of. I haven't seen too much of it, but I know it's big in the States, and I know it's not huge in Melbourne, but I certainly think it's growing, where people go up and it's not about the comedy. It's about being weird or strange. And that's fine too. If you're being funny, whatever, who gives a shit? As long as people in the audience are laughing.
If people are laughing, people are laughing.
If you're doing a show and there's one punchline in the entire hour, or there's one punchline in an entire set, like, are you really doing stand-up? You're doing a variant of it, but it's not quite what But once again, I will go and see. I'd love to go and see Jim Jeffries, or I'd love to go and see, Dave Chappelle. But a lot of people would hate that. It'll be the worst hour of their life. It's the same as people might want to go watch an hour of you, or an hour of me, or an hour of Neil. But in reality, for a lot of other people, they'll be like, "Oh, I fucking hate that guy. This guy sucks. He's a woman hater. He's this. He's that. He's the dude who did the Christchurch thing." It's like metal. It's like rap. Some people hate that shit. Some people love it. Whatever. Yeah. But I think you have to be able to. But what I was going to say was you have to be able to accept that there's different types of stand-up. But also it's difficult to do that because sometimes you look at something and go, "That's not fucking funny." But that's how people look at us, and it's a strange thing with a lot of nuances that you have to toss up in your mind. It's a hard thing to wrap your head around.
It's funny in the sense that I'm a comedian, so I recognize that everyone's stuff is completely different because ultimately most comedians are just being like an exaggerated version of themselves. Like, oh, I'll take this shitty part of me and then I'll amp it up and then I'll criticize it. And some people go, "Oh, this guy's a fucking asshole." But if you give them a little bit of if you take it with a grain of salt, you can be like, "Oh no, well he's being an asshole to show that you shouldn't be that type of person." That could be what they're doing or whatever. So I always find it so weird when comedians like trash other comedians when they're genuinely trying to make people laugh. Like, I totally get it if a comedian fucking rapes someone or does a heinous act, but I never understood other comedians going after comedians for jokes that are definitely jokes because, if you take away that, guess what? It just got closer to you. If this type of comedy is banned because that's weird, but you're playing within the acceptable world, the barrier just got so much closer to you. And next thing, you're next because you do this type of thing. And it always just does seem very, very, very fucking weird to me to see comedians trashing other comedians. And to the best of my knowledge, what's kind of, unique about all of the guys that are blowing up online, we don't do that. I've never seen any of us like single out another comedian, even in response to them talking shit about one of us. I've never seen that shit. No. So it's very weird to see all of these people like invent an idea of who you are, trash that fictional character, even without like any reason to justify their prejudice. It's strange to me. It's getting a lot better for me because I've been in Melbourne my whole life, and I've countless times I have seen people talk shit about me on Twitter, even if it's just liking a tweet from somebody else, and then I meet them and I see them go, "Oh, I thought he was this. He's actually that." Like, I've had countless people like it's a problem. I've learned that it's like a problem that I have to deal with, where first impressions are so powerful, where and we don't get a first impression because often, if you're in the industry anyway, I'm not trying to sound like an arrogant wanker. Like, normal people I meet, most people do not know who I am. But like in the comedy industry that I'm in, people know who people are. So you don't get a first impression because they've already seen that from whatever video you saw. So I've had so many people, like, I meet them and I hang out with them and I get along, and then it's time to part ways and they go, "Oh, thanks for being nice." And I'm like, that's weird. Why do people keep thanking me for being nice? And I kind of realized, oh, it's because they think that they're special. Like, that's rare. Like, they go, "Oh, there's Lewis. He's going to be a cunt to me." Yeah. And then I'm not. And they go, "Oh, I'm so lucky." Yeah. It's like, no, I'm not a cunt. Yeah. I'm nice. I want to get along with people.
Yeah. It's people say, I've had people say to me, "Oh, thanks for being nice to my missus." It's like, what?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Like, I don't hate anyone. Like, if you get to know, and this is why the podcast is important. It's probably the same for you. You get to know someone a much cleaner version or a realistic version of themselves through a long form conversation. And you don't get that with quick videos or with stand-up clips or with whatever. But I mean, with when it comes to offense, I said this in the video in the response to my Christchurch thing. How many people are you allowed to offend? Can you offend one person in a room? 2, 3,
Yeah.
4? What's the number? And if you really look at jokes, there's all types of jokes offend someone or offend someone's delicate sensibilities or something they believe or they think or they feel or they have in their lives. And where do you stop? Are you allowed to stop? Should you stop? Or should you just go out there? And the only offensive thing is if you tell a joke and you keep telling it and it's horrible and it's mean and it's offensive and racist and no one laughs, no one likes it, but you keep saying it because you think you're proving a point. That's when
that's not on, because then you're just being a dick, you know. You're being a bad comedian. You're not responding to negative feedback.
I don't want to.
Patrice O'Neill.
Yeah, sorry, go on.
Well, sorry, Patrice O'Neill said something that I fucking loved in an interview, and it was about a joke controversy that another comedian did, and so this journalist is like grilling him about it, about this specific joke that, you know, didn't in the room didn't go well. So they had more of a point of like, oh, they said this horrible thing and people didn't laugh. So how do you defend that? And Patrice O'Neill said, look, I'm not here to defend any joke, and I probably will never defend any specific joke because I think that's beside the point. What I'm here to defend is the attempt at humor, the attempt to make people laugh, because if you go on stage and your intention is to offend people, I don't think you're a comedian. I think you're an asshole. And a comedian's, our intention, our main intention should never be just to offend, right? My intention is always to make people laugh, but I know doing that, it will be unavoidable that people will get offended, especially the type of humor that I do. Your main intention should be to make people laugh. If your main intention is to offend or hurt, then you're not a comedian, you're just an asshole.
Yeah.
And that's what's so important, is you need to stand up for the attempt with the intention to make people laugh. Because, I mean, so often you go up with an idea that you think is funny or could be funny. You just need to try it, and then it doesn't go well. Maybe no one laughs, but that doesn't make you an asshole, because your intention was to make someone laugh. And then if you can take that negative feedback, go back, reword it, write it, I mean, maybe pat it down or work out how to make it more ridiculous or whatever and make it funnier, and then go out again and it works. It's still about the same terrible subject matter, but your intention is still the same. But when you did it, when it wasn't working, does that mean you're an asshole? No, because you were trying to get to here where it worked and brought joy rather than made people go, ooh.
Yeah. And sometimes you can't give up on a bit either. If you think it's genuinely funny, like Thomas Edison making a light bulb, people ask him, oh, you failed 50 times. He said, no, I just found 50 ways not to make a light bulb. You know, it's the same way with stand-up. Like, you might fail a few times. Yeah, you might fail a few times with a joke, but eventually you might find a way to make it funny. And if you're going out trying to be hateful, and that's the thing, that's why I struggled so hard to wrap my head around the whole Christchurch thing. Like, I'm not going out, I know it's offensive. That's the whole point. It's supposed to be horrible, but it's not hateful. And that was the big difference. But I think, Lou, like, most people know this, you know, in our circle, and our circle being the comedy circle and people who enjoy our type of humor or your type of videos or my type of videos. You know, we're preaching to the choir. And then when something happens, like you get cancelled or people trying to come after you, it's incredible to see these people fly out of the woodwork, attack things like sponsors. Like, the thing with the sponsors thing is weird. Like, they go and they say, hey, you're a sponsor. Do you agree with what Isaac said about Muslim people? Like, what the fuck do you want him to say? Yep, absolutely. Fucking spot on. This bloke, he's got it nailed.
Also, they didn't sponsor the special. So no. Fuck off. That's like, what do you want? It's like, oh, do you support this? And the brand goes, hey, we actually didn't. We supported this. So you win. It's like you might have a tiny argument, even if it's still fucking stupid. If you were like, you tell the punchline and then you go, and that joke was brought to you by Qatar Airlines. Like, maybe they got a point there, but otherwise they literally didn't approve or sponsor it. So shut the fuck up.
Man, it is crazy, and that is the sentiment that they're running with at the moment. It's like, hey, you know, if you say something, we're going to come after you, and we're going to come after everyone who's ever been around you, man. I had people booked in for the podcast that pulled out because they said, oh, it's not a good time to be you know, surrounded, or not a good time to be associated with you. I was like, what are you talking about, man? This will be over in 2 days. Like, this is
That's
what
what
happened.
I said on my podcast. So I said, I recorded it on a Friday. I can't remember what day it happened, but it was like day 2. And I said, watch it. It'll last 3 days. And, you know, day 1, everyone sees it. They send hate to your page. Day 2, you haven't apologized, so they're still angry. Day 3, everyone starts to move on.
Yeah.
And it's like that 3rd day is where it starts to tail off. And you if you go on Isaac's Instagram page, you can literally see the 3-day rule happen like clockwork.
I was going to say that.
Post from when it happened, 20,000 comments. The next day, 10,000 comments. The 3rd day, a few thousand. The 4th day, couple hundred. It's fucking over because you didn't apologize. And that's the thing. Like, I had this happen to me. I told a joke about the Dreamworld accident. And this is in my comedy special, and you can find the clip on my YouTube channel as well. I think it's a brilliant joke, but it's fucked. You know, the thing that happened is horrific and terrible, and that's so sad. But the joke about it is good, and that's literally the joke that I'm telling is like, this is bad, the joke is not, and that's the bit. And that shit happened to me. And what happened was people shared my joke with, you know, text that says, this joke is bad. This guy is saying a terrible thing. You should hate it. And then people who are not fans of me, who don't like the type of humor that I do, and who never would, even if someone else did it and I never made that joke, if they saw me with a positive context attached, they would go, oh, it's not really for me. They see that and it literally says, you should hate this. It is fucked. Do not like it. And then they watch it with that in their brain and they go, you know what? I don't like it.
Yeah.
I gotta fucking tell him. And it's weird, but it lasts 3 days unless you apologize, because if you apologize to these people, all of a sudden the angry mob who don't like you and don't want to like you and will not accept your apology go, fuck your apology. It's not good enough. Or they go, oh, he's apologized. Good. I can move on to the next person. They never watch your shit again. All you're doing is saying to your fans and the people that enjoyed it, hey guys, you were wrong. It wasn't good. Fuck you and everything that I stood for. And now you're left with no one.
And it happens with everyone. Like, it happens with us on a micro level. Look at Joe Rogan. Like, when he comes out and something happens, he said something about transgender people or whatever. And most of the things he says about that are very well thought about and researched, and they're quite correct, in my opinion. Anyway, he will get a hate for 2 or 3 days and it'll drop off. The same thing happens with us, as you said with the YouTube. And I completely forgot that you just look at the comments. But I was about to say, with the analytics that you get as the Instagram page for the Monday, 380,000 people visited my page on that day. Tuesday, 340,000. Wednesday,
that's day 2.
200. Back to what was the next day? Thursday, back to the normal number of 100,000 impressions. Excuse me, or whatever it happened to be. And that's what everyone said. Saint Lane, who's a rapper and friend of mine, he said the same thing. He said, man, this is the best thing that could ever happen to you. And he's a Kiwi too. He said, this is the best thing. He said, man, you got Jacinta Ardern, the Prime Minister's talking about you. This is fucking great.
Right.
And I was like, you know what? It is. Like, it's hard to deal with that because I had 48,000 DMs.
Man, it's as comedians and as people who stand up for this stuff, there's 2 things that are true. 1, I don't give a fuck and I'm going to do it anyway. 2, it does suck when you get that like negative reaction. Like, it's not nice. I had it when we got fake stories on a current affair and pretended to be this, and then we revealed it was bullshit. You get such a huge like backlash of negative attention. And if you say that is good, you might be a sociopath. It's not nice. You don't want people threatening to kill you and hurt you. It's not a good feeling. But it is unavoidable, I suppose.
Yeah.
When you're doing this type of stuff, you know it's going to happen. It's just almost a shock how negative and scary it can be when you're in it. You just got to like hold on to the boat and be like, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine.
You can see the light at the end of the tunnel. You're just like, okay, I just need to survive this bit. And that's what it was like for me. And that's what it's like for all these people, even people like Brian Callen, who was accused of rape. And he just come out and said, no, that did not happen. This is absolutely incorrect. And obviously completely different situation to me. But that's what I felt like. I felt like I had done something horrible like that. I felt like I had gone out and killed someone. I felt like people were saying, and I remember there was this one tweet that I couldn't believe that someone was like genuinely serious. They said that Isaac is on par with the killer. And I was like, oh my God, are you serious?
That's crazy.
This guy's gone and murdered 51 people, done the worst thing in the last 30 years.
I'm offended by that.
I know. And I was like, oh my fucking God.
Yeah.
And my mum was like on my Instagram reading the comments. I was like, do not read the fucking comments. Are you serious? I was like, Mum, there are so many nutcases. They're terrible for Mum. But anyway.
Well, I bet, you know what? I bet you were secretly a little bit stoked that we can't do shows when you're in the middle of it. You know, you don't want to end up getting Charlie Hebdo, do you?
No, I know. I was genuinely worried about that. And tour manager Zach was ringing me up going, what the fuck, mate? I'm going to need to get more security at shows and you're going to need a fucking bodyguard and this is bullshit. And I was like, it'll be fine. Relax. I was like, mate, people, if you want to come and talk to my face and then you still want to stab me, okay, fair enough. But I very much doubt that.
Right. Also, you see what happened when Jim Jeffries got punched at a show. That literally ignited his career from amazing comedian that was like a cult favorite to who the fuck is that guy? He got punched at a show. Like, have you heard that story?
Yeah. I've seen it.
It's in his special.
Yeah. I did the same room that he did. Where it happened, I performed in the
amazing.
UK, and they've got like a photo of it there, and they tell the story when you go there, and as you said, that really launched his career because it was something so outrageous he couldn't believe, and no one could believe it was happening. Imagine if I got stabbed. How good would that be for my career? Terrible for my kidney.
If you survive.
If I survived, I mean, you could be like Michael Jackson and stuff, and keep getting bigger afterwards. But
that's true.
I mean, I don't know if I really want to,
you don't want that shit. It's not good. I mean, I think even speaking about the possibility of it probably isn't a good idea. I think that's fucked.
But,
I wouldn't want that to happen to you.
You've got a whole special that says death threats don't scare me. So I'm sure you've received the same sort of thing. These things happen.
Oh yeah. That's why I called it that. Cause I did this Dreamworld bit and then it went fucking crazy and I got all this negative attention. This is a few years ago. And then I was like, well, fuck you. I'm calling the whole special Death Threats Don't Scare Me. And I'm putting that Dreamworld bit in the fucking thing. And it went great. And some people didn't like it. And I totally understand why not, because it's not for them. But, the people who like this type of stuff fucking loved it.
The thing was, like, I had in the special that they took the clip for the Christchurch bit, there was a bit in there about Aboriginal people being arrested. And it was just a throwaway line. And I always throw an Aboriginal joke in because I have Koori fellas come to the show and they fucking love that shit where I make fun of Aboriginal people. Like you always see an Aboriginal dude, he's like slapping his mate next to him because he thinks, oh, fuck, that was funny for whatever reason. And I always do those jokes in, like I tell this story, I did a show in Moree in New South Wales, which is a majority Aboriginal area. And I did these Aboriginal jokes and they fucking loved it. And I always, I was always a bit scared about doing those type of jokes because it was a bit like, and it's always the white fellas who are the most offended by that type of shit. And I was always a bit iffy about doing it, but I always do it because I feel like it's more offensive to think, no, they can't handle it sort of thing. Anyway.
That's another thing. It's like people always ask like this question of like, oh, should you punch down with jokes? And I think that's a loaded question. I don't think that jokes are punching. It's not violence. It's a joke. I think that, the way to be inclusive is to include everyone. And, I have what might be an unpopular opinion. I genuinely believe there are racist jokes that shouldn't be told because some of them are written with the intention of making races feel inferior or make people perceive them as less. But those jokes are not being performed by comedians. Those were written by racist people to belittle others and are usually really fucking old because that was a mainstream view at the time.
But that comes back to intent. 100%
yeah, intent. Yeah. That's like, I hate this race. Here's a joke that will hurt them and make them seem lesser. Whereas, race jokes are not racist jokes. Jokes about race, I think are inclusive as fuck. If your intention is to make make them laugh, you know, I don't see an issue with it if it's done well.
And it is crazy that it receives so much attention because these are jokes that are told all the time. And, you know, you hear, like, I hear genuinely racist humor and you go, oh, fuck, like, that's what I'm being accused of. That's what I'm caught up in. Or, you know, this whole thing with the anti-feminist shit. Like, people say, oh, you know, the worst thing I ever saw was a comment that said, I bet this bloke bashes his missus. And it's just like you've met my missus. Like, it couldn't be further from the truth. I am the most whipped man in the history of
absolutely.
mankind, and I love it. And I love it. You
Never
know,
met a more whipped man in my life.
I know. Yeah. I'm all about it. I love it.
Didn't you buy her shoes at the Gucci store when we were there? Like, that's not
possibly.
the man.
You know, I'm loaded. I just throw it away now. I'm just like, yeah, Gucci.
I mean, look, I don't know if that's because you're whipped or you were trying to apologize. I mean, I did see that comment. You know, I don't know what it was, but the context seemed very whipped.
You know, these things happen, you know. You fucking it's I don't know. You got to separate church and state. You know what I mean? And I don't mean that in relationships. I mean that in jokes, like the real person and the person telling the jokes on stage. But the reason I wanted to get you on today, Lewis, because I wanted to talk about what's been happening with Google and YouTube in Australia at the moment. And I actually received, just before I started recording this podcast, I received an email from YouTube talking about the proposed changes to, well, not even changes, but bringing in regulations to how news is broadcast. Now, I'm just going to bring up the letter that was sent out on, must have been at some point last week, and it's an open letter.
Yeah, last week. I've been all over this shit. I'm fucking fuming about this, so I'm happy to talk about this. Yeah. So
we need to let you know about new government regulation that will hurt how Australians use Google search and YouTube. The proposed law, the News Media Bargaining Code, will force us to provide you with dramatically worse Google search and YouTube could lead to your data being handed over to big business, a big news business, and would put the free services you use at risk in Australia. And I think there's like three main points. The way Aussies search every day on Google is at risk with the new regulation. Your search data may be at risk, hurting free services used like YouTube and Google search. And there's the lady who sent it, Mel Sylvia, Managing Director on behalf of Google Australia. Now, that is the open letter they sent. Now, I've got here the key comparisons of the law in comparison to the old law. Now, the current law. There is no current law. That's the big thing. Yep. And also, over here, if anyone knows how to get rid of that, I keep trying to get rid of it, and it keeps coming back. So hit me up in the DMs. Just as soon as I get out of it, I come back and it's fucking there, doing my fucking head in.
Fuck. Wait, at least Pornhub isn't there, bro. In your favorites.
Yeah, what do we got? TripAdvisor. I never use that. Zach books all my shit. Anyway, so I don't know what's there. That'll be fine. So the new law, the responsible digital platform being YouTube, Google, same thing, right? Google search. Corporations must comply with minimum standards which require them to provide registered news businesses. Now, the registered news businesses, it's very specific wording. So
essentially, registered news businesses, by the definition of this law. So what the ACCC is doing is they're trying to make this sound like they're fighting against this evil business Google for Australians to make it fairer for everyone.
Yes.
Absolutely not fucking true at all. This law specifically is only for news businesses, and what they classify that is a news business that brings in more than $150,000 a year and employs multiple journalists. So that's you fucked, me fucked, Friendly Geordies fucked. That we're not that at all. It is literally for News Corp. And you know, the real big news businesses.
Channel 9, Channel 7, not so much SBS and the ABC because they're.
I think they're excluded from it, from what I understand.
They are excluded as far as monetarily, but not so much as far as algorithmically, if you will.
Yeah. So. They want to be notified of the change to the algorithm. Now, I actually think we should all know about that. because YouTube changes its algorithm, and one day this will work and be a good type of video to make, and then the next day it'll get your channel banned. So I actually think that everyone should be notified of algorithm changes, but what this law states is only news services will be notified when an algorithm changes and how to essentially game the system. So these news corporations will be able to fuck around and artificially inflate the reach of their videos by plugging in the information that this robot algorithm wants to wants in there, rather than doing good journalism. This whole law is so Australian media, and it goes back to what we were saying about people not wanting the internet independent creators to succeed. It is so old media, refused to adapt to the internet, didn't hire anyone who understands the internet. Like, none of us have ever gotten like a good mainstream opportunity. I had a little stint at a radio show. That's about it, as far as I'm aware. But none of these people want anything to do with us or any independent creator. I'm not even talking comedy. I'm talking like people killing it with independent journalism or whatever, building online audiences. So what they've done is they can't compete with independent creators. So instead of adapting, learning how to thrive in the online environment, or hiring some of these people who can do it with no money, they're instead trying to regulate the internet. It's literally like, oh, we can't do this well, let's make doing it well illegal.
Yeah, 100%. And it goes on, and it basically runs through like everything that they have to include in have to include as far as information is concerned. Now they say that registered news businesses, which, as you said, $150,000 a year over or within the last 3 years, have earned that consecutively. Now, it also says these need to receive the algorithm changes, which basically gives them the cheat code to, rather than relying on good journalism, as you said, they are just given the cheat code. They're saying, hey, this is what you need to do. Rather than changing the way they do things, rather than saying, hey, too fucking bad that you suck at this new media, here you go, here's the cheat codes, here's what you need to do. Now, if that is such a big issue for Google and YouTube, and I know it is, I know that's what they hold so dear, if they want to take the power away, release it to everyone. You know, that takes the power away straight away.
That's what I think should happen. I mean, I think obviously there needs to be, it's a weird balance to hit, because there needs to be a little bit of secrecy, because it is a robot. What you don't want is, you know, the algorithm telling everyone, oh, this is what the robot likes to see in articles. And then someone uploads an article that is just keywords of whatever the robot wants to see, instead of doing a good piece that incorporates that knowledge. So then it's a tough balance to hit, that I don't think YouTube has given enough info, but I don't think they should be obligated to give out 100% of it, because then it will just, it's like, it's the fucking cheat code. It's like, oh, press these buttons and you can do unlimited grind on Tony Hawk. It's like, yeah, you're not going to fall off the skateboard, but it's not very fun, is it?
No, and you're not succeeding. You're just cheating. That is literally what it comes down to here. It goes on to say that the next change is that also with the algorithm, they will be given notification of any changes coming. So rather than us as YouTubers, and I don't think there's anything wrong with being called a YouTuber. That used to be such a dirty word. And I'm sure back when you started, it was a fucking dirty word, right? If you're a YouTuber, you're
no way. It's when I started, creating content online was the future. Now it's like it's becoming the present. Yes. You know, like if you're not doing it, you're an idiot, which is why I get frustrated about fucking comedians talking shit about online creators. It's like, how can you hate us when every single comedian in America that you like has a massive online platform? Yeah.
And it's Australia, man. Like it is.
Yes.
If you're listening
to tall poppy syndrome,
overseas,
something that I think our culture struggles with a little bit is tall poppy syndrome. Oh, he's fucking doing something without anyone else giving him permission. What makes him better than me? It's like, bro, I didn't say that. You did.
It's the same with Australians when it comes to movies and shit, like, or technology. You know, we're always 2 years behind the US. And I think it's the same with this, maybe even 3 or 4 years behind the US. So the law goes on to say responsible digital platform corporations may not discriminate I'll put the thingo back up for those of you playing at home. Make sure it's the right one and not fucking Pornhub. There we go. Responsible digital platforms being YouTube, Facebook. There's also Facebook as well. Not that many people are putting videos on Facebook.
Yeah, so this isn't. I think it's just for all online platforms that exist. It's less of a Google regulation, more of a law in Australia, the country. So if you want to operate as an online business, this will apply to you.
Responsible digital platforms, all those guys, corporations may not discriminate between news businesses or participating in the code or between participants and non-participants because of their participation in the code. Now, that is the strangest fucking paragraph I've ever seen. But basically stating that if you do decide to become a part of this new collective bargaining agreement with Facebook and YouTube, then Facebook and YouTube aren't allowed to say, hey, you've fucking tried to cheat us, fuck off. That's not allowed to happen. Responsible platform, digital platform. See, this fucking thing's back again. Jesus Christ. Responsible digital platform corporation and registered news business corporations are required to negotiate in good faith once registered news businesses corporations indicate an intention to bargain. If a responsible...
These two are the ones you're about to read. These are the ones that pisses me off the most. We'll get into it.
If a responsible digital platform corporation and a registered news business corporation cannot reach an agreement within 3 months, then the parties will be subject to compulsory arbitration about remuneration, stating that they have to find an agreement about how much they will be paid, and they demand that they don't get paid the amount that Louis Spears gets paid. They don't get paid the amount that the Buttsman, this fucking dickhead, gets paid. They deserve more because they are the status quo.
Yes, so that's the big one that really frustrates me. So for those who aren't aware, when you're a YouTube creator or an online creator, I mean, I can only really speak to the YouTube one, but I assume it's similar across all platforms because it's the same on YouTube and Facebook. So if my video makes $1, YouTube takes 50%. And then I get my 50 cents. So they take half of every dollar myself, Isaac, bring in. YouTube takes half, and I would imagine that's quite similar with the online journalists. If you bring in $1 of ad revenue, they take half. Right now, Isaac and I have managed to create a living for ourselves under that agreement, even though it's difficult and whatever. We have this amazing platform, and it sounds harsh, but I think that it's worth it. I think it's fair, right? They provide this incredibly expensive platform, and I can create something from nothing using it. Now, these news organizations,
Lewis, they did all this, and I know people freak out about this, but YouTube and Google, our overlords, they did do all this for free at the start. Okay, I will say that, which is cool. Like, they put a massive amount of investment in. And also, they have football stadium-sized fucking rooms with, I don't know, you're smarter, you're wearing a leather jacket, you're smarter than me, with fucking things you plug in and different systems and all this
servers.
Shit. Yeah, that's the one. With all the servers and all that bullshit. Okay, I don't have that.
I've never seen someone in a server room wearing a leather jacket unless he's there to steal one.
I think there's a Mission Impossible film where that happens. But yeah, they have all these things set up. They have all these employees, so they deserve a cut. Go on.
Yeah, infrastructure. So, so what these news corporations are trying to do is, so they want to maintain that split, so keep that going, but they also want to force negotiation to be paid money for literally every single thing they publish, and that negotiation is non-negotiable. So Google must pay them something that they both agree on, and if an agreement can't be met, the Australian government will come in and force an agreement, and you know that won't be very favorable for Google. So basically what this is literally News Corp and all these other companies, they can't thrive in an online environment. They can't make any fucking money. Instead of doing it well like we have, they are instead opting to force Google to pay them to do a bad job. So if someone puts out an article about some fucking BuzzFeed bullshit about haircuts or whatever the fuck they've been writing, and no one clicks on it because it sucks, they will still get paid for that, even though it's objectively bad journalism. And what will happen with that is, obviously, if I'm a business owner and I want to print money, I'll reach an agreement, $100, $300 an article. Guess what I'm doing? Articles every second of the day, motherfucker.
Yeah.
Fuck quality, pump it out. I'm getting money. It's like, It's insane. And I will have the knowledge to artificially inflate this shit so that it appears above all independent creators. I'm not just talking about us. I'm talking about independent journalists that have their own blog sites. Maybe they fund it through Patreon. They're all fucked because they won't have the keys to the castle and getting money per piece like this bullshit law wants to introduce. It's crazy.
You don't think that the news publication won't flood the market with shit, just go and have a look at the Daily Mail's Facebook page. They post every 14 fucking seconds the most ridiculous and retarded headlines, articles, whatever it happens to be. They just pump it out there because they need people to go to their website so they can get AdSense, so they can pay the fucking bills and keep the lights on, because they know that
quantity over quality.
100%. They know the newspapers aren't selling anymore, and they're freaking out. They are panicking. I remember I had an argument with a journalist in Newcastle about the paywalls, and the paywall was something. It was way too much money for what it was. And I said, mate, you can't charge people that much money and expect so many more people to come and join the service and read the articles, because they might only want to read one article. You need to make better content and monetize it that way with a sponsor or with something like that. And he said to me, because my old man was writing for the paper at the time. And he said, what, do you think that your old man's articles aren't worth people paying for? I said, no, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is they are worth paying for, but you need to make a way for people to pay for them in a way that isn't just saying, hey, you need to pay us this much to see what's going on, because that's not how the world works anymore. People demand free free entertainment. And that's where you will make your money through advertising.
You earn your money in this shit, you know, like that's the thing of like with so for me, going back to what we do, I will entertain you for free all year. And then I'm going to ask you for $30-$40 once when I come to your town, and then we're even. If you got to pay me per video or whatever, I mean, I have a Patreon for people to support and for people who really like it. I think honestly, with that shit, it's like if all of these news businesses behind paywalls don't make sense because you don't know what you're paying for. So if I pay however much money a month to, say, the New York Times, I don't necessarily know what I'm going to get, you know? I think what's probably the better way to do it would be to have like what we do, which is you are an independent journalist, and you go, I'm this guy and I specialize in this and I write articles about sport. If you want to support what I do, you can do it here, rather than grabbing the sport guy and the crazy feminist that hates chicks, and then the dude who writes about dogs and ducks and bullshit fluff pieces, putting them under one umbrella and going, pay for this. And then I look at it and go, oh, but I only like this guy. I think she's insane, and this guy probably fucks his dog. I don't want to pay for these two. I only want this.
Yeah,
it's they don't get it, basically.
And they're refusing to grow. They're refusing to move on. They're saying, okay, this is the way it's always been, and don't you dare change the rules. And I just think it's just it's a weak attitude. It's a weak mentality. Yeah. And I'll just bring up the final thing as well. You've already really spoken about it, but if you don't find the final, if you don't accept the final offer as far as remuneration is concerned during the arbitration, then basically the government will come in and decide where it will be. And you know, these I might even put these into the description of this video, because there's a lot going on there as far as the law.
It's worth a read, because it's very interesting. I mean, it's a little bit legalese, but it is worth
going through.
But the main points is they want secret knowledge about the algorithm so that they can play the game better than anyone else with the keys to the castle. They want to be paid per piece regardless of quality and traffic, which is insane. And then the government will force a number, basically, if no agreement is decided. Those are the key tenets, I suppose.
And of course, it depends who's in government at the time and which news department or broadcasting service or whoever owns them they're dealing with. Like if you're working with News Corp and you're ScoMo, you might allegedly give them a better deal than Rupert Murdoch, or vice versa. You know,
absolutely. It will give. Not only does it fuck independent creators, it will give so much more power to these news sites, because what can happen is they can go to Labor or to Liberals or whoever's not in government, and they can go, hey, if you want us to throw the idea to the Australian public that you should win, we'll support you harder than anyone else and all your competitors if you promise us you will negotiate a better deal and more money for us when you get in. And a politician, that's like, oh, wait, so I get free advertising and all I have to do is make sure that you get money from a business I don't own? Fuck yeah.
But there's some people out there, Lewis, that still think, okay, no, that doesn't happen. People don't just report on who they want in power. And all you have to do is look at CNN versus Fox News.
Yep.
Just look at that. You could have two TVs going in your house, and one is on CNN and one is on Fox News. You will get about the same story, two completely different accounts coming to completely different conclusions about the exact same thing. And that is why, and I think this is the biggest thing when it comes to this type of shit that we're talking about, as far as news businesses taking over and having the monopoly when it comes to online content, you can't trust these fucks. You cannot trust them, not even slightly. Like, you can't trust a lot of people, but you cannot trust the news.
No way. It's and especially not if this thing gets passed, because it won't be about good journalism. It will just be about how much shit can I put out there because I'm getting paid this much per article. Yeehaw, let's go. Yeah. So I think to fight against this, and I'm going to publicize this on my own thing. There's an email that you send an email to the ACCC. I suppose.
Yes. What is the email? Do you have it there? I can't fucking find it.
I don't have it. I'll send it to you. But just put it in the description or top comment. Yes. Seriously, send an email, and obviously don't be a cunt. Just make it well reasoned and say why you don't like it and what the negative effects will be, because this is, ultimately this is a rule made by people who don't understand the internet. And if, depending on how the idea was presented, the idea with Google could sound pretty unfair, if presented in bad faith. So I think that's what they're operating under, in the sense that these news articles have gone, oh, Google's treating us unfairly, they won't pay us for our work, when really the answer is you're doing a bad job and you can't generate money because no one's reading.
Yeah. This isn't just
about, send an email.
This isn't just about your back pocket or mine. Don't get me wrong. We love money, but it comes down to what you will watch, what you will view, and what you will see online. And it will be tainted by corporations. And not the corporations you've come to love, like Google, our powerful overlords who we love very much. Thank you, Google.
Well, we absolutely love them. And if Google was a person, I'd be on my knees with my mouth.
I'd be sucking so many Google cocks right now. It would not be funny. I would just be full. It would be a big bukkake Google party.
Well, for guys, I mean, I've known Isaac for years. You guys might not know this, but he actually doesn't have a beard. It's actually Google's pubes stuck to his face with Google's cum. It's
like the front page of Lemon Party.
And I'm getting there as well.
You are growing a beard. Are you going to grow it out? What's happening there?
Look, it's not. I think it's too patchy. I'm like here, and I'm keeping it here. I think.
No. Grow it for the entire lockdown. Grow it as long as you can.
I mean, I really could. I have thought about it, but I don't know. I'm happy with how I'm looking now. Little bit of facial hair, massive forehead. It's happening.
Grow it out. Grow your hair out with a leather jacket. You'll be looking like Steve Hughes in no time. If you don't know who Steve Hughes is, ladies and gentlemen, you need to find out who he is. Hey, Lewis, Thank you very much for coming on, Big Dog. I'm sure you're going to cover the whole YouTube, the algorithm sale, so to speak. With the news platforms in more detail. It's something I'll work on as well. And I think the more we talk about it, the better. But as far as, and with the comedy, and I appreciate your words that you said on your podcast about the ordeal that I was dealing with. And I think we just need to keep telling jokes, and it'll all be sweet when it comes back to the normal way that stand-up is running around the country, hopefully in 2021.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Whenever it's safe, that's what I'll say.
Whenever it's safe, we'll be back out there. And
happy to be on, and I think the answer to all of this stuff is if this is what I've always thought, is if the industry is going to lock us out, that's all good. We can create our own industry, because at the end of the day, we're not even the future anymore. We are the present. So that's why I stood up here, because I think that what these cunts would like more than us failing would be us shitting and killing each other.
Absolutely. So, ladies and gentlemen,
thanks for having me on, mate.
Go and see Lewis absolutely everywhere. Just type in Lewis Spears. You'll find him on Instagram, Facebook. Well, not really Facebook. Who gives a fuck?
Check out my podcast, Spearhead Sundays.
podcast.
And if you want to check out my comedy special, it's on my website, just like Isaac's as well. It's a fucking banger. Thanks, mate.
Thank you,
I'll talk to you
brother.
very soon.
All the very best. Ladies and gentlemen, back next week. Be a good motherfucker. Peace and middle. Be big stinks. Toodaloo. Bye-bye.